There is a moment that happens in your yard every single evening. You probably feel it before you notice it. The air changes, the light goes amber, and something shifts in the sound around you. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in a way that is unmistakable once you are paying attention. The robin that was singing from the top of the oak 3 minutes ago has gone quiet. The cardinal chips that were bouncing back and forth across the yard have stopped. The chickadee chatter that filled the maple all afternoon has simply ceased, and within about 15 minutes of that first silence, the yard is completely still. Most people experience this as pleasant. The evening settling in, the natural world winding down for the night. A peaceful transition that happens automatically without any particular reason behind it. But there is a reason, a precise, layered, biologically specific reason, and understanding it changes the way you hear everything that happens in your yard, from the first call at dawn to the last note at dusk. Because the silence that falls at sunset is not the absence of something, it is the conclusion of something. Welcome to Bird Minds. Today we are going into exactly why birds stop singing at sunset, what is actually driving that silence, what the final calls of the evening mean, and why the last bird to go quiet in your yard every night is almost certainly doing something most people have never thought about. Stay until the end, because the final section reframes the entire day of bird sound in a way that once you hear it, you will not be able to unhear it. To understand why singing stops at sunset, you first have to understand why it starts so intensely at dawn. The dawn chorus, that explosion of bird sound in the 30 to 60 minutes before and after sunrise, is one of the most studied phenomena in behavioral ecology. And what researchers found when they began analyzing it carefully surprised almost everyone. Birds do not sing at dawn because the morning is beautiful. They sing at dawn because the morning is the most acoustically efficient moment of the entire day. In the minutes around sunrise, the air is cold, dense, and almost completely still. Wind is at its lowest. Thermal air currents that scatter and distort sound during the day have not yet begun. In these conditions, a bird's song travels further, stays cleaner, and carries more precise information than it will at any other point in the day. The acoustic environment of dawn is essentially a free broadcast upgrade. The same call that reaches 50 feet at midday might reach 200 feet at first light. For a bird whose survival depends on claiming and holding a territory, on advertising fitness to potential mates, on being heard clearly by rivals, that acoustic window at dawn is too valuable to miss. Every territorial bird in your yard knows this, not consciously but physiologically. The hormonal surge that triggers dawn singing is time to the light, but the behavior it drives is perfectly calibrated to exploit the acoustic physics of early morning. This is why territorial birds always sing from the highest available point at dawn. Height plus still air plus maximum signal range. A robin on the peak of your roof at 5:30 in the morning is not celebrating the sunrise. It is operating a broadcast tower. As the morning progresses and the day heats up, the acoustic environment degrades. Wind picks up. Thermal air currents begin rising from warm surfaces. The clean signal of dawn becomes increasingly cluttered with interference. A bird singing at full volume at noon is working much harder to project the same information, the same distance it covered effortlessly at 6 in the morning. This is one of the reasons midday singing drops off significantly in most species. It is not that territorial pressure disappears at noon. It is that the cost-to-benefit ratio of singing shifts. More energy spent, less signal delivered, diminishing returns on an expensive behavior. In the late afternoon, something shifts again. The wind begins to calm. Temperatures drop slightly. The acoustic environment starts to recover towards something closer to the clarity of morning, and birdsong picks up in response, not to the intensity of the dawn chorus, but noticeably more active than the midday quiet. This late afternoon singing peak is real and documented, driven by the same physics that drive the dawn chorus. Better acoustic conditions mean more efficient singing. The birds are not becoming more cheerful in the afternoon. They are responding to an improvement in the broadcast environment. And then the light continues to drop and something else begins. The cessation of singing at sunset is not a single event. It is a cascade. It begins with the species most sensitive to light levels, the ones whose singing behavior is most tightly coupled to the specific wavelengths of light present at different times of day. As the light spectrum shifts toward the red end at dusk, these species begin going quiet first, then the next tier, then the next, until the last singer falls silent and the yard crosses the threshold into night. Researchers studying the dusk chorus found that the sequence in which species go quiet at sunset is remarkably consistent from day to day and location to location. It is not random. It follows a pattern determined by each species' photoreceptor sensitivity, its predator risk profile, and the specific acoustic strategy it uses to communicate. Robins are among the last to go quiet. Their sensitivity to low light levels is exceptional. Robins can function visually in conditions that ground other species completely. This is why robins are typically the first bird singing before dawn and among the last singing after sunset. And it is why, in urban areas with artificial lighting, robins are frequently heard singing in the middle of the night. Their visual system interprets streetlight as twilight and responds accordingly. If you have ever heard a bird singing at midnight in a well-lit neighborhood, it was almost certainly a robin, and it was not confused or distressed. Its light-sensitive biology was simply responding to a signal that human technology created without understanding what it would do to a bird's internal clock. Now, here is the layer of dusk behavior that almost nobody knows about. The calls you hear in the final minutes before your yard goes completely quiet are not the same as the calls you hear during the day. They serve a different function, carry different information. Cardinal pairs use a chip call throughout the day as a location ping. She is in the east hedge. He is in the oak on the far side. Every few seconds, one sends the chip, the other answers, a running confirmation that both birds are present, safe, and accounted for. In the final 20 minutes before sunset, those chips get faster. The intervals between call and response shorten, and the pair begins moving toward each other, converging across the yard, branch by branch, using the chip call to navigate toward a shared roosting location in the densest available cover. When they finally land on the same branch or disappear together into the same thick shrub, the chipping stops. They can see each other. They do not need words anymore. Cornell Lab of Ornithology documented cardinal pairs doing this converging behavior every single evening. The same calls, the same rhythm, the same movement toward each other as darkness approached. A nightly ritual so consistent it could be timed to the minute. What you have been hearing in that last rush of cardinal chips before the yard goes quiet is not random evening noise. It is a pair finding each other before the night makes finding each other impossible. The calls getting faster is the distance closing. The silence that follows is arrival. As the cardinal pair settles, the rest of the yard completes its own version of the same transition. One by one, every bird that has been active since before dawn finds its place for the night, into cavities, into the thick inner branches of the holly, into the dense tangle of vines along the fence. And as each bird settles, the yard gets quieter by degrees. Fewer voices, longer intervals between calls until the last sound fades and the network that ran all day finally, completely shuts down. The silence that falls at that moment is not empty. It is the sound of a system that has been running at full capacity since before dawn, processing threats, coordinating movements, advertising territories, maintaining pair bonds, tracking predators, narrating the world to itself continuously, reaching the end of its operational day. Every bird that fell silent did so for a specific reason, at a specific time, in a specific sequence. The silence is as structured as the sound that preceded it. It just requires a different kind of listening to hear. So here is what the sound of your yard across a single day actually is. The explosion at dawn is not birds being cheerful. It is every territorial bird in your neighborhood exploiting the best acoustic broadcast window of the entire day, transmitting fitness, claiming space, warning rivals, through air that carries their signal further and cleaner than it ever will again. The midday quiet is not the birds resting. It is the cost-benefit calculation of singing shifting against them as heat and wind degrade the acoustic environment to the point where the energy expenditure stops being worth the return. The late afternoon pickup is not the birds becoming active again. It is the acoustic environment recovering as the day cools, and birds responding to that recovery with renewed investment in the behaviors that singing supports. And the silence at sunset is not the world going to sleep. It is the conclusion of a structured day of communication, the last territorial claim made, the last location ping exchanged, the last pair converging through the fading light toward each other, ending not in silence but in arrival. Every bird that went quiet tonight landed somewhere, found something, completed something. The cardinal chips that got faster just before dark, that was two birds finding each other. The calls that thinned out one by one until nothing was left, that was every bird in your yard settling into the night, one at a time, into the spaces that will keep them alive until morning. The silence that falls over your yard at sunset is not an ending. It is the sound of everything going exactly right. Tell me in the comments, what is the last bird you hear singing in your yard every evening? I want to know what closes your days. I read every single one. I will see you in the next one.